Rickie Fowler has been playing in the PGA Tour since he got his tour card way back in 2009. But apart from a handful of event wins, he's never really lived up to his potential. This year, he had a chance to play in the FedEx Cup Playoffs, but a terrible hole at the qualifying event dashed any hopes of staying on. We'll be covering that and more in today's video. First up, Fowler loses FedEx spot. Rickie Fowler has been a fairly consistent part of the PGA since he began his career with the tour back in 2009. He's been pretty high up in the rankings at multiple points since then, but recently, his performance has left much to be desired. Regardless, he qualified for the FedEx St. Jude Championship, the last golfer to do so in fact, and he was set up to qualify for the next event in the playoffs. He was almost there, a single hole separating him from having to play another week in a row, but it just wasn't meant to be. When Fowler stepped up to TPC Southwind's number 18, the final hole of St. Jude, he likely didn't expect the terrible stint of bad luck that would befall him. When his run at the 18th hole had concluded, he was up by 5 on what is a par 4 hole, netting him the second quintuple bogey of his entire career. Next, the 18th hole. It was a Saturday afternoon that Fowler isn't likely to forget anytime soon. Not only did it end with a quintuple bogey, it was a score of 9 that was matched only one other time in his career, which also happened to be 5 over par. Right from the tee, things weren't looking anywhere near good for Fowler. The tee shot landed in water and was then dropped 221 yards from the pin. His penalty shot was rough too, again being hit into the water. This time, it took another drop of 181 yards from the hole. Things weren't looking great at all at that point, but he was determined to bring it back in the 5th shot. It wasn't too bad, though the approach shot could have been better, as the ball landed 53 feet away from the hole. It seemed as though things were brightening up for Fowler, though he was already over par. His 6th shot proved to be a challenge. It was a chip from the fairway, and it unfortunately landed on the rough. At that point, Fowler had pretty much accepted defeat, being utterly stumped by the 18th. But he had to finish the hole up. The gallery was still heavily invested in his run though, and there was clearly an air of sympathy around the field. Thirdly, the drawn-out finale. It was a rough ride, and there was still quite a bit left to go. However, Fowler finally had a stroke of luck, pun intended, when he struck the ball for the 7th time. His 7th shot finally landed on the green and placed him just about 6 feet away from the 18th hole. All he had to do now was keep his nerves steady and make the putt. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, and Fowler had to walk dejectedly over to the ball that rolled just millimeters past the final hole. His 9th shot on the field would thankfully be his last, and he quietly walked off the field, having had one of the worst days in his career. He finished with a 2 over 72 and headed into the final round with 2 under. Now, what's next for Fowler? Before this final hole, Fowler was sitting in the top 20 of the scoreboard in the tournament. After that, he had fallen considerably to tie for 60th. That's a major drop for just a single hole, and one that will be difficult to recover from. In order for him to continue his run in this year's tour, he'd have to have an amazing showing at this week's event at Memphis. In fact, the Golf Channel has said that Fowler would need to finish in at least the top 11 to move forward. An official from the PGA Tour disputed that though, saying that he's actually going to have to do even better than that, and at the very least, actually have to tie for 8th to move forward. It's clear that Fowler will have to be at the top of his game later in the week if he wants to keep his place in the tour. Next up, Fowler's prior record and future. Fowler was once one of the major golfers to keep an eye out for, having once been ranked the number 4 player in the world, but his career has taken a significant downturn over the past few years, something that anyone who's followed him can testify to. Back in May, he had fallen down to 146th position in the rankings, more than 100 positions below what he was at his peak. It's also been more than 3 years now that he's won a tournament. The only reason he was in the PGA Tour this year at all was because he managed to finish T8 at the 2021 PGA Championship, but his position has been in jeopardy ever since then, and now it's at its most critical point. Finally, there might be hope for resurgence. There is, of course, a hope of resurgence for the golfer. He might not be the same player he was in the PGA back in 2014, but his career might still have new life breathed into it. We're of course talking about the new LIV Golf Series that's been sneaking away players from the PGA recently. At one point, the PGA might have been concerned about a play like Fowler leaving the tour, but now that he's no longer swinging well under par as he used to, it might be easier for him to pull away. As for whether the LIV would want him, we think there would absolutely be space for him in the fresh tour. The LIV has been attracting players both young and old, stealing away veterans of the tour that haven't played in their peak form for years, but still have a lot of name recognition. Fowler might be a safe bet for them because he's had his time in the limelight and is now an easy enough fish to grab considering his low ranking. Other news. First up, PGA Stars talk LIV. It's been a fairly tumultuous time for golf this past year, with the PGA becoming increasingly antagonistic as more and more players were drawn towards the Saudi-backed LIV Golf Series. Multiple huge names have weighed in on the situation, with many being extremely critical of those those that have chosen to play in the new tour. However, a recent meeting of major PGA stars was held to try and achieve some sort of unity amidst the growing tensions. Among them was the legend Tiger Woods. The meeting came after a federal judge ruled that the PGA could bar LIV golfers from participating in the FedEx Cup Playoffs. Rory McIlroy, the current world number 3, told reporters that the meeting was impactful and that Woods' leadership was paramount when the players were discussing how the PGA Tour could be improved, considering that many players moving to the LIV did so on the grounds that the LIV offered a better environment and schedule. Though all who participated in the meeting praised Woods, many were concerned that there were no actual actionable steps discussed to contend with the rift that had been growing. Next, Reed sues Golf Channel. Patrick Reed, a 9-time tournament victor, has recently filed a defamation lawsuit against the American television network, the Golf Channel, and commentator Brandel Chambly. The filing states that there were malicious and calculated attacks against Reed, which have ultimately cost him several multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals. The lawsuit, if won, would net him $750 million in damages. It claims that the network and Chambly have deliberately and strategically targeted Reed ever since he was 23 years old, with the intention of destroying his reputation. Reed also said that Chambly misreported information in attempts to discredit him. Neither the network or Chambly have responded to these accusations as of yet. Reed has also been in the spotlight for joining the LIV Golf Series in June, something which may result in a legal battle with the PGA very soon, as it has with countless other players. Lastly, PGA partners with Qualtrics. The PGA Tour has announced that they are now officially partnered with Qualtrics through a multi-year agreement. The agreement designates Qualtrics as the experience insights provider for PGA Tour and PGA Tour champions. Qualtrics has an experience management platform which can analyze fan, player, and partner feedback over multiple channels. Through the platform, the PGA will be able to act on real-time insights to bolster their tournament experience. This will include management of their ticketing, concessions, and special events. The platform provides insight based on information retrieved from fan surveys, social media, online reviews, QR codes, and more. PGA Tour representatives say that this will allow the organization to better engage with current fans, as well as draw in new demographics. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Fowler can secure his position in the tour? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.